Welcome back to the Dream Plan Start Grow show. My name is Allison Turner. I am your host. I started this podcast to be able to interview other entrepreneurs on how they got their start. Some of my guests are really new in business. Some of my guests have been in business for 20 plus years, and everyone has a story, and each of us has a lot of overlap in our stories. So I really believe that we can learn and grow with listening to other people on what their challenges were, what their successes were, and maybe using some of those tools and tips to help us move forward. Today, I am honored to have with me Debbie Dowling-Wahba. Debbie is a business strategist. She's born in Massachusetts and raised in New York. She brings a unique blend of analytical thinking and creativity to her work. With a passion for empowering businesses, Debbie utilizes her expertise in psychology and digital marketing to create effective strategies that drive results. When she's not busy helping clients grow their businesses, Debbie is a devoted mother of 6 and an aspiring motivational speaker. With her unwavering faith and commitment to family values, Debbie is a true role model for resilience and empowerment in both her personal and professional life. I'm going to welcome Debbie to the stage. Welcome, Debbie. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Allison. I'm super excited to be here with you today. So I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, no, I am too. I know it's been on the calendar for a couple of months. When you first scheduled it, I was like, oh, she's scheduling in May. And now we're in May finally. It seemed so far away at the time. But
I know. I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, oh my goodness, like my interview's in May. And I was like, wait a second. It's
next week.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. This is April 30th and tomorrow's May 1st. So I've known you for, 2, 3, 4 years. I'm not even sure how long it's been through the Clubhouse app. I know you're up in Central Florida and you obviously have been raised your 6 kids or almost raised your 6 kids, have 1 or 2 left at home still?
Yes.
Almost raised all the 6 kids and now have gone off onto the entrepreneurial venture yourself. So what made you decide to, I guess, go into business for yourself versus going out and working for someone else?
Well, Allison, so that's kind of a loaded question because one of the things was that I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. So when I started to apply for jobs, everybody, if they even responded, told me I did not have enough experience. And also, as a person that deals with anxiety, going out isn't always the easiest thing for me to do. So for me, it was finding my way and realizing that I'm not going to be able to do things the traditional go out and get a 9-to-5 job. So just finding what worked for me and just really stepping out and being brave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it takes, anytime you're an entrepreneur, it takes obviously the bravery piece, but especially if you've been the stay-at-home mom for 20 years and kind of been out of the workforce trying to figure out what that next step is a big step, I guess, so to speak. So I know you've kind of gone between a couple of different things and you do a little bit in both and you've focused in on one, but I'm going to talk about the anxiety coaching or anti-anxiety coaching. Maybe, I don't know what the term is first. How do you help other people, I guess, deal with anxiety? I know you do some coaching around that and some speaking around that.
Yeah. So, as somebody that's had it since my early 20s, I allowed to talk about it. And it was through my whole journey of discovering myself and then just opening up and sharing with people about having this anxiety. It really just stopped the anxiety of having the anxiety. And I realized that there was such a need to talk about it and to really just give people that hope that I wish that I had during my early days of my journey of anxiety. So for me, it was really just about stepping out and being vulnerable and sharing my story and getting it across to people that there are ways to cope and manage it.
Okay. And do you still do some speaking about it right now? Do you do some coaching with it right now? I mean, what are you doing to help out the community right this second?
Yes and yes. So yeah, I talk often. I do a weekly show on, it's on every platform and it's about mindset. And also on Wednesdays, I'm on Clubhouse. I do a segment both times I have a partner, Mary Kim Farkas, and we talk all things mental health, and we just open up the platform and allow people that safe space to talk. But I do private coaching, as well as I do run some challenges. I did one in February on self-love, because that's an important thing in dealing with anxiety, is loving yourself. And I'm actually going to launch another one this summer. I decided I was going to do it quarterly because I had such a great response to it, and people just loved it, that I'm going to do it again.
Okay, awesome. And how did you decide, I guess, because that's anxiety could affect anyone. I mean, it can affect men, women, all ages. I mean, I've heard, the Gen Z side talking about it, especially since they were really hit with the pandemic and staying at home. And then all of a sudden they had to like go back and reintegrate into society, and a live society, I should say, as opposed to online society. Like how did you decide kind of who to focus on in your message?
Well, great question. So for me, it was really about focusing in on women, only because I feel like I can relate to them better. And not that I can't help a man, and not that I can't help kids, because I have helped teenagers as well as early adults. But for me, I think it's just easier for me to relate to women over the age of like 30, 35, that and up, because it's just, I can relate a lot more because I've been through those ages. So it's just about the relation.
Right. No, and I think it's critical. I mean, that people, unfortunately, or whatever you want to say, in this country, I think mental health challenges are sometimes frowned upon. I think it's changing in certain respects, but I don't think it's changed enough yet. And especially if you're in business for yourself, not only you, but obviously I'm assuming you're helping some that are business owners. I think, owning a business can cause anxiety, especially if you're new in business, you're a solopreneur where you don't have that business partner or that someone to bounce things off of, and you're in it alone. I mean, there's definitely, I know in my early kind of days of business, even when I had a business partner, and I don't, knock on wood, necessarily suffer from anxiety like someone that's clinically diagnosed, but I know there were anxious moments myself. So I can only imagine someone has those challenges and how they fare with them.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was more about just knowing that I have a gift and a talent, and to be able to use that and give that to the world and help somebody. That's what really gives me that push. And then as far as anxiety, yes, there's moments that I'm terrified, but at the same time, I just look at it as, okay, I'm going to get through this. This feeling isn't going to last. And community has been my biggest help and support. Just being amongst people that are supportive, but will also say, hey, Debbie, you need to do this. And just having a supportive community has been extremely helpful.
Right. No, I think that's true. And knowing kind of what those next steps are. And I think that supportive community can help. And I know you and I've had this conversation offline before, that a lot of your support comes from more of an online community versus people you're going to meet for lunch or coffee or things like that. Is that still the case?
Well, yes. And, it has nothing to do with my friendships and stuff, but it really is about having that same, like-mindedness. We all have, everybody that I'm around has a good heart. But it's about having that like-mindedness where you can have conversations and people understand, because they're trying to achieve the same things, or, and we're kind of on the same journey and the same path. Our paths may look different, but when you're in a community of people that understand what you're trying to do and accomplish, it definitely makes things easier. And then, you can have those conversations of, well, what do you think of this? And has this ever worked for you? Whereas, like my friends are my friends, but they're not in business and they don't understand that part of it. So it's easier for me to, lean on the community that I've met online when it comes to my business stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the positives that did come out of the pandemic, is even though we had access to that before, I think more and more people went online because of the lockdowns, excuse me, and the other things that were happening. So it kind of forced us into meeting new people online and building those communities. I think that's one of the, I guess, the positives, if you want to say it, that came out of that negative time.
Oh, absolutely. I honestly don't think I would be here right now doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for the pandemic, if it wasn't for me meeting really great people online and being a part of just amazing communities. I don't think I would be here. I would still be stuck.
So I'm going to switch a little bit to the other side of the business, which is that business strategist. And I know they're very kind of different businesses. And I know you and I had talked about kind of which way you were going. And I know you kind of, you're newer in the world of entrepreneurship in the last year or two. I don't know even know how long it's been, but so what do you find rewarding, I guess, about that side of the business?
Well, for me, so I like to be creative. And for those that know me, I like to do creative things. And I do make beaded pens, which I do on my crafting time. But then I needed a place to put my beaded pens. So I started to build websites, and it allows me to have my creative brain and use my creative brain. So that's what I love about it. And that's why I decided to step into that world, to be able to use that creative side and also be helping other people.
Right. Right. And what have been some of your biggest challenges in launching that business?
I think it's just really being able to talk about it, as far as like people have known me in the anxiety space for so long, that being able to get out there and see that I have this other side to me, that's been my biggest challenge, because people know me for anxiety because I've been talking about it so long. So, I've been trying to change up the script a little and explain that, yes, I'm still working in that anxiety space, but I'm also doing this now because I really enjoy it, and I love to help people. And this is just another way for me to help.
No, absolutely. And I think that's important in entrepreneurship, that there's that love to do what you're doing, which is one piece, but also love to help people. And obviously they're paying you to help them, but nonetheless, you have to enjoy what you're doing and enjoy the people you're working with, and kind of the end mission that you both are on. So I think that's an important piece in business.
Yes.
And so what have been, I mean, to date, and I don't know how long you've been doing the business strategist side, but to date, like, what have been some of your best successes so far?
So I've honestly only stepped into the space within the last month and a half. I finally got my LLC, and my greatest successes have really just been from some of the people that I've been able to help, seeing their vision come to life on their website, and being able to listen to them and have them really just be a part in the process of building their website. They'll tell me, what they're looking for, what their vision is, and then I just try to create it. And that's where the creative side comes in. And so that's been my biggest, I guess, my biggest reward personally, is just seeing that, somebody happy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I know you and I overlap in this industry a little bit because we do website design as well. I know you specifically focus on the go high level side.
Yes.
Do you find that most of your clients are receptive to that platform? Because I know it's a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of different platforms, and I shouldn't say it's a newer platform, because it's not a newer platform necessarily, but it's, I think, come to more people are knowing about it now than maybe did know about it a couple of years ago. So do you find most of your clients are receptive to using that platform and it helps them?
Yes, I actually have. I've found that they are, because they're in a space of just pretty much starting out their businesses, or they're very new to business, so they don't understand what they need. And I tell them, when I started my anxiety business, I needed something, and this is where I wound up. Yes, you can use all the other platforms for free and all, but this is where I wound up, and this is where I learned to build, like my websites and stuff, and email marketing and all that stuff. So it's just a conversation really that I have with them, and tell them, this is what's working for me, and they can choose to or not. And for the most part, they are like, yeah, let's do it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, especially if you're working with newer business owners, it's easier to, I mean, I always love working with the new business owners in the marketing and the coaching side, because they don't have a lot of the preconceived notions. I mean, in my business, I inherit a lot of sites because sometimes someone else has built it and they've, gone away or whatever's happened with them. And so I have, sites on WordPress. Haven't inherited Go High Level necessarily, but Wix, all the different platforms that are out there.
Right.
That we then manage those sites and improve those sites, as well as build on primarily WordPress and Go High Level, or the two platforms that we work from typically. But, I think the industry itself is interesting because it's always changing, and I think, I think that's one of the things that, when I left working for other people, one of the things I would always leave jobs for was I would get bored. I would just, it wasn't like I didn't enjoy the job or I didn't, like what I was doing per se, but it would be like, okay, now I've gotten to here and like, I didn't see like the motive, the move upward, and I would just get bored and I'd be like, okay, got to move on to the next thing. So I think in the world of entrepreneurship, there's always something new, and especially in the industry of marketing, online marketing and websites and things like that, there continues to be things that are new, with Google changing things and new updates and whatnot.
Yeah, Google's always changing things. And, so I think one of the biggest pushes too, Allison, was when I took your course on the dream plan, start, grow, dream, start, plan, grow. I'm sorry, I can't get to
You can't keep track of my.
It's too many words for me to keep it together. But it was such a good course, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I attribute a lot of what I'm doing now even to just being a part of that and seeing my vision. And not that others didn't play a part in it as well, but it's like each step that I've taken, there's been somebody that has sparked something in me. They say when the student is ready to learn, the teacher will appear. And that's truly how I feel things have gone. And I truly believe that I've been blessed with that each time that I've needed some kind of growth in some kind of area, the teacher has appeared. So it's just been a journey, but a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And I think, it's interesting because you said you've, been kind of finally doing this officially, I guess, for a year and or a month and a half. So I was already giving you a year and a half, but because I know you dabbled in it before. So maybe it wasn't official because you didn't have the LLC, but, you dabbled in it before. So, I mean, where do you see your kind of vision going? Do you see yourself exclusively just doing the Go High Level sites and just really specializing there? I mean, are you managing sites for clients? Are they managing them? Because I have kind of a split in my business. I have a kind of a split where, some clients want to manage their own site, which is fine. Or they have a marketing person that, takes it over. And some clients are like, I don't have time for that. And you can handle it. So.
No, so for right now, the clients that I'm working with, I work with them to help them do it and basically teach them how to do it themselves. So I'm not currently managing anyone in that respect, but I do work with some people one-on-one to help them to learn how to do it themselves. Because you know what, whether I manage it or they choose somebody else to do it, at the end of the day, you need to know your own program. Oh, yeah. So if they decide to pass it off in the future, that's great. But I want each and every person that I help to understand the whole back part of it. As far as going to other platforms, I do foresee myself doing that, not just sticking with Go High Level, but not anytime soon, because I just feel like, one step at a time. I've gotten to this point. Yes, I've been using Go High Level now for over a year, but I've only been officially in business for a year. Well, yeah, see, I got to give myself the same time for a month and a half. But yeah, so for right now, I'm just going to stick with that and then eventually work on to the others.
Right. So what if, one of the questions I love to ask like new business owners or newer business owners is, what do you do daily to kind of keep up? And maybe it goes back to the conversation we had at the beginning on the anxiety piece, but basically to keep yourself, maybe sane's not maybe the right word, but kind of even keel, because as I'm sure you've seen, there's a lot of ups and downs in business. So, you may do a proposal for somebody and they go a completely different direction because they go with company B over here, and you're like thinking they're going to go with you, and then things change, or all the time. So what do you do kind of daily? Is it meditation? Is it exercise? Because I'm a big believer that, we as entrepreneurs have to be proactive in doing things for ourselves, because too often you're so engrossed in the business. And I've seen that with business owners that you lose sight of your health, you lose sight of, maybe your mental health, all those different things, instead of really focusing in on that.
So I am big on the meditation. I think that's huge for me, has been the meditation. Also prayer, do a lot of praying. And another thing too is, even during the day, I will take 5-10 minutes and I just sit and do absolutely nothing and breathe. Because to me, just having that few minutes to kind of like wind down a little bit and reassess my day, and maybe something shifted and I need to focus on something that in that moment needs my attention, whereas earlier in the day it didn't. So it's really just kind of listening to what is needed and what I need to do and taking that time for myself. But yeah, so it's really just doing a little something every day.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the important thing. I mean, I've done a lot of focus. I'm in it's called a results group. It's really kind of an accountability group that we do things on a quarterly basis, and it's a weekly meeting. And I find that a lot of my goals for the quarter, even though I have the business ones in there, like a lot of the stuff that I do kind of on a daily basis or weekly basis is a lot focused around personal, because I'm really intentional about making sure I'm the best I can be. Because if I'm the best I can be, then the business is going to be easier to handle. The ups and downs are easier to handle. All those things are easier to handle versus, if you just focus on the business, then all that kind of goes out the window. And then sometimes other things can happen, which aren't good. So.
Right. You have to find that harmony, and what works for you, and what works for you may not work for me, and what works for me may not work for you. It's finding that harmony between your work life, your personal life, and just in general.
Right. And then how has family played into it? Because I know family's a driver for you and doing things for the kids and whatnot. And, at this point, I know you're, divorced and, the last couple of kids that are at home. But obviously you're still heavily involved in their lives. So how is family a driver, and does it negatively impact at all, or is it all positive impact?
Well, in the beginning, my kids had a hard time adjusting to me being an entrepreneur, because they were used to me being a stay-at-home mom, and Mom, I need a ride here now, and Mom, I need this now. And it's not like that anymore. And I think the biggest shift for them was when I actually bring them in and show them, this is what I'm working on right now, because then they see I'm actually doing something, and they don't think that I'm sitting in front of my computer staring at a blank screen, or watching, movies on my computer. Right, watching those and not paying it. So I think bringing them in and also sharing what my wins, my losses, my lessons, just bringing them and making them a part of it has been huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I have my 19-year-old stepdaughter that lives with us, and Jack, her dad has been a business owner probably since she was pretty young. I mean, so even before me and things like that. So so she's seen that kind of growing up, even though I don't think he's really done what you've talked about of things like that, but she's very interested in owning her own business. I mean, and so she sees both of us working. I mean, and we're too close, I think, to really give advice per se or suggestions or whatnot. But sometimes she'll ask some questions and whatnot. So, I mean, I think she's watching, it's one of those things, they're observing, but they're not always doing anything with those observations yet. So I'm hoping that maybe down the road, some of those observations will help her once she decides to do something with the business will help her kind of grow her business, because she wants to own a catering business at this point. So, hey, Jamie, how you doing? Thanks for jumping on. My friend Jamie Lee Mackey just jumped on. So,
hi, Jamie.
Jamie was my very first guest on this podcast in my studio here in Delray Beach. So kind of goes full circle. I think I'm on episode 70 something. I'm not sure which episode I'm on right now, but
that's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, but Jamie was my very first guest. So, and then her husband was on my show as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And now Jamie's still maneuvering. She has twins at home that are under a year, I think. So she's still maneuvering she's a crafty person, like you mentioned, crafts. So she does like craft classes, where you can go and you'll do them at a brewery or a place where she can get together people. And I've gone to one because I like the designing of sites and things like that, but the craftiness of like doing beading or something like that, I've just not done it. So I did what did I do with her? It was like a little plant basket crochet thing. Not real crochet, but weaving.
I know you're talking about. I love those.
Yeah, I did that. I'm like, I might kill the plant because I'm not good at that side of things, but I'll have the plant basket.
Put a plastic plant in it. Nobody will know.
Yeah, that's what I should do because I think the plant's long gone. But the live plant, because it came with a live plant. But
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I think I just digressed way off the subject. but yeah, I mean, I think it's good to have the kids involved because, especially with your kids, they can see then that anything is possible. And I think that's the message I like to give to people in their, the Gen Z, the millennial population. I think the millennials kind of have that, but I think the Gen Z population, especially, I think my last interview was actually with somebody, he's an entrepreneur and he was 24 or 5. Mm-hmm. So he's solidly in that Gen Z population. And we were talking about, business owners and he said a lot of his people that he knows are interested in owning their own business or at least like a side hustle or something to do on the side, while working for someone else.
Yeah. And that's a hard age. And I have 4, actually my youngest is going to be 18. They're all kind of in that. And, they grew up at different times and thankfully, and I see the entrepreneurial spirit in them. And, when I thought about it, because, sometimes I spend some time reflecting, I realized that I was always entrepreneurial because at 11 years old, I had a paper route and it was a very small one, but I had a dollhouse that needed furniture and wallpaper and carpet. So I delivered newspapers. And I wound up growing my route. I would walk around and knock on people's doors. And by the time I was like, okay, well, because I lived in New York at the time. By the time I quit, because I was just like, I can't take another winter of galoshes and, the slush and the dragging my wagon with the papers. But I even had to hire my sister. But by the time I finished, they actually had to divide my route into 2 because it was so large. Nobody wanted to take it. I see that in my kids. And when they see me grinding every single day, doing something, they actually, they'll say, Mom, we're so proud of you because they see that different side now. Whereas I'm not just mom anymore. They see me as a professional, as a business person, and they see the growth in me. And I think that is something that's made me proud of myself because when your kids see it and they say it, it's, if others have said it, but the most important thing was my kids telling me, we're so proud of you.
Right. Yeah. Because I think too often, my mother was a stay-at-home mom. And I think too often, we as growing up in that type of household kind of take that for granted almost like, because you're, and she only had me, so she didn't have the 6 kids in the house. So, but I think we, me, and I'll speak for myself, kind of take that for granted that, what's the way you're doing or whatever, and, but yeah, I think that's important that they see you, not only now as mom, but also as like the business owner and the entrepreneur and, see that, even though you spent those 20 years really raising them, that, the sky is still the limit. You can still shift the gears. There's life after kids,
Right. And that's, I want them to realize that just because they don't succeed at something, or they do succeed at something, does not mean they can't move on to something else. You
Right.
don't have to stay in the same place. If you find something that's your passion, and you move towards it, and you can do something with it, that's amazing. And don't
Yep.
ever stay stuck because you feel like that's the only thing you can do, and you're never too old to start something new.
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I had the oldest entrepreneur I had on my show, I don't know, a few months ago. She owns Network Professionals Inc. down here in Palm Beach County. So she owns this networking franchise down here in Palm Beach County. And she is currently, I think, 83. Now, she started she bought into this franchise at 60. So she's had it for 23 years, but she's still running it. And really, I think, does a great job of running it, and loves, so I've had the young side. I think I've had 3 that are in that Gen Z population, in the early 20s, and then the span up to that side. And I think that message is important, because I think our world is going more towards, and it was already there, but I think the younger generations are going more towards wanting to be able to work from anywhere. They want to be able to travel more. They don't want to get stuck in a 9-to-5 job for the next 40 years and retire with a good 401k. They want different experiences,
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. And, because I haven't worked in so long, I don't have a 401k. So anything I'm working towards is towards my, my golden years. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, there's just this, I get it. I get why they want to be entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of them have gotten away from the fact of go to college, because they hear all this stuff on, the news about this debt that these students are in, and how long they have to pay the debts back. And at the same time, I think about it, and my degree is in psychology, and I stayed home 20 years, but I got to tell you, I got a lot of work, a lot of use out of that degree, between all these kids, and now even just doing what I do, between the anxiety and also the business, just having that perspective, and being able to see how people are responding, or how they're, interacting. It just gives me a deeper understanding.
Yeah. And I think, I don't think there's a clear answer on the college versus no college. I mean, to me, it's very dependent on the person. And because I used to be like, oh no, everyone should go to college.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, even if you're going to community college, wherever you're going. Because I think there's a certain, from that 18 to 22 span, and I know it's not an option for everyone. So I want to be careful on how I'm saying this, but from that 18 to 22, you develop so much more too. And I think that's where you lose that piece. Because college, I mean, at least my college experiences gave me that opportunity. It was the first time you're on your own for a lot of people. It's you have to figure out, if you're renting an apartment, have to figure out bills and things. So it's not like you're just at 19 going out on your own and working a full-time job and trying to figure all this out. Usually, you have roommates, and then there's the personal. I mean, I think the biggest thing that schools give us is that personal interaction with other people face to face. So how to deal with certain situations when you get out into the work world, or even if you're working through college or whatever it is. To me, that's the biggest thing, because I had a history degree and never used that per se, but I did use the thought process behind that it taught me, in writing papers, and in kind of how history comes back around. So I think that's my, now I'm a little bit more maybe most, some kids don't need to go to college. I mean, my stepdaughter is not interested at this point, I mean, and things can always change, but right now she's not interested. She really wants to be her own boss. And for what she wants to do, she doesn't necessarily need school. I mean, she's a really good cook. She knows how to do seasoning without measure. She doesn't measure anything, because I'm always
I don't either.
She's like, I don't know. I just put it in there. I'm like, oh, Like, how do you recreate the recipe if you do that? But I mean, that's like she doesn't necessarily even need to go to culinary school, depending on what she wants to do, if she wants to do catering. So, whereas some people like follow the school route and go to the culinary side. But, I think that's where everything is not changed, but we're more open to a different paths. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
And, here's the thing, even if you have the opportunity to go to college, college is not right for everybody. So you could not, you could have all the things in front of you, scholarships, whatever, but maybe it's just not for you, and that's okay.
Right.
Finding your passion. Like, I don't measure when I cook. I'm like, okay, that looks good. And it goes. Yeah. So I'm one of those, cooks as well. But I think it just comes down to, what are you comfortable with? And
Right.
yes, I believe in that age, you do have to find your way, and you do have to learn about having a job and paying bills. But if you're in that space of being an entrepreneur and finding ways to do that, then why not? I mean,
Yeah.
to me, I have the 6, 3 have gone to college. 3 are not. 3 have not and are not. So it's like we're a house divided. Right. We're house divided. And, my one son, he's going for his master's right now. My daughter already finished. She's a nurse. My other son's about to graduate with a degree in psychology. And then the younger 3 2 are out of high school and just decided college wasn't for them. And then my youngest is actually supposed to graduate this month, a year early, because he just wants to be done with school. So even though they can go to school,
yeah,
it's just not for them. And I would rather them turn around and try to do something, and then maybe in 5 years say, you know what, I want to go to school now, because then they'll be focused on it, as opposed to just going for the parties and getting by.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's, clearly the case in that Gen Z population of, like, they're just trying to figure out what the absolute right thing is. So they're trying a bunch of different things and seeing what they enjoy and what their goals are. Versus, I think my household, when I grew up, it was like, that was the expectation, is that you were going to college. It wasn't, oh, well, you could go do this over here, or you could go do this. I mean, unless I was going to become a professional tennis player, in which case, maybe college wouldn't, unless I was going that direction. But that wasn't in the cards for me back then. So I think that's where, we're in a different population and world today than we were, all those years ago.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree.
So in owning this relatively new business, what have you found that you don't like to do in the business? Because I find that, when you first start a business, and especially if you're a solopreneur, it's like you're doing it all. You're doing the books, you're doing the website. Obviously, hopefully you like to do websites since that's part of the business. But, but you're doing the website, you're doing the marketing, you're doing the sales, you're doing the implementation of whatever the service is. You're doing everything, because you don't have necessarily the funds to hire out a lot of it. Maybe you can do 1 or 2 things, but what is it you find that you don't like to do right now?
I don't like social media. And not that I don't like it. It's something that I've struggled with, and being consistent on social media, because I don't enjoy it, coming up with the content and that, and not that I can't come up with content, because I got a world of content. It's just forcing myself to do it. I was able to work with somebody recently, Rocky, and she showed me the easier way to do things. So I have been stepping up my game on the social media part of it, but it's definitely something that is not my favorite thing to do at all.
Yeah. And I always tell people, in the social media realm, is like, I'd rather see people post, 3 times a week than feel like, okay, I got to post 7 days a week. And, if I miss a day, oh my God, the algorithm's going to throw me out, or, whatever the thought. Cause I think people see someone like myself who posts quite a bit, and they feel like they have to be there, or they see another person. I mean, I know people that post far more than I do. And I'm like, hey, when you all have time to do all this stuff, and they may have someone doing it for them as well. But I find that, it's more the consistency, even if it's 3 times a week, consistency, and also focusing in the social media on, one or two platforms versus feeling like you have to hit 5 platforms or 6 platforms or whatever it is, because sometimes your target audience isn't there and you'd rather be good, like really good on one than across 5 or 6 and then not be so good on 5 or 6.
And see, that's the thing. And that was one of the things I learned. And so I have been more intentional, and even for this business, started a whole new Instagram page for it. So that this way here, I'm being very intentional, very focused, because the audience I want there is basically what I'm trying to attract to my business. And, it's been a little bit slower in the growth than I, want, because everybody wants that 1,000,000 followers overnight. It's not going to happen. But just being consistent, and I do post 3 times a day, 3 times a day, 3 times a week, 3 times a day. Oh my gosh, that would stress me out too much. I am being consistent in posting 3 times a week and making sure that I follow a specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a specific plan. So, and I am growing slowly, but I'm attracting who it is that I'm wanting to attract. And that's the part about being intentional.
Yeah. And knowing who your target audience is. Because I find that often new business owners are like, well, anyone could be my target audience. I'm like, no, please don't say that. It always makes me cringe whenever I was speaking somewhere at an event, like I was the speaker, and it was a whole thing on kind of branding, branding and branding you, because I believe that's kind of the market we're in, is branding the person as well. Unless you're a huge corporation or something, that's a little different. But then the banker in the audience was like, oh no, everyone's my audience. I was like, no, they're not.
No, they're not.
There's a lot of banks around, and everyone is not your target audience, your target customer. Like, who do you specifically want to work with? And, but anyway, but I think that's where, kudos to you for knowing, exactly who that target audience is that you want to work with, and really focusing the social media in, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that new business owners do, is like, oh, let me just post generally and try and attract everyone. And, the more,
I don't want everyone.
Right. And I find the more you can niche down, then you can do it across everything, your social, your social media, your website content, your, anywhere that, even the conversations you're having on Clubhouse, all those different things, you can really have that same language and focus it in a little bit more.
Yeah, and that was why with the second page, like my other page is more personal, but it also talks about the anxiety. So this way here, I started this page. It's strictly about, business and business strategy. So I just focus in on that. And like I said, it's growing. And I just have to be patient and know that it's all going to come, and the right people are going to come and follow me there and connect with me in that.
Right. And then what's been your kind of favorite thing about owning a business?
Well, my favorite thing has always been my time is mine, and I can plan, my own time the way I want to. And not only that, not just the way I want to, but it still allows me to be mom, be at the events, be here, be there, travel a little bit. So that still is my part. My favorite part of it is because I don't have to ask for time off. I just rearrange my schedule and have it do, work it into the way I need to work it into.
Right. No, I think that's important, because I think, you, with your business, you can work from anywhere. So you don't need to be beholden to Central Florida. I mean, you can go anywhere. I mean, I'm going to be traveling some at the end of May for about 3.5 weeks, and won't be in South Florida. I'll be elsewhere, but I'll still be basically doing, I think the only thing I'm really changing, I think there's a couple of networking things I'm not going to be attending, that are in person versus online. But otherwise, doing even meetings within the group, that I'm missing, I can still do that, because I can do it on Zoom. I can do it via phone. I mean, I obviously will still have all client interactions and all that type of thing. But I think that's probably the biggest thing. That's always been my number one goal, is to be able to work from anywhere. And I haven't really done it a lot. I mean, I was up in Indianapolis for a week last year around end of May, but this is going to be the first time I'll be gone a longer period of time for like 3.5 weeks. So
Yeah, I was actually talking to my sister-in-law the other day because it was my nephew's birthday, and she's in Egypt. And I said to her how I really want to come to Egypt and see her again. And she's like, "But what will you do about your work?" I said, "As long as I have internet, I can work." So it's it's going to be more of adjusting to the time change than anything, but that's the beauty of it. I said, "I have a laptop. As long as I have internet, I'm good to go."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's true, and that's on my list to go to is Egypt, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. But yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah. No, I slew of my friends and connections have gone in the last year. All of a sudden, it's like everyone went to Egypt. I'm like, what is the story here? Like everyone, I mean, literally, I was like camel, pyramids. Like I kept seeing all the the highlights of Egypt, or their highlights of Egypt, and I was like, okay, y'all are making me want to go now. So,
Yeah, I've been twice already, so I really do want to go back and visit.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, as we start to kind of wind down today, I always ask one question of everyone I have on the show. And if that is like, if you could give one tip for someone that wanted to start a business right now, could be any kind of business that's really helped you in your business and your business growth, what would that tip be?
For me, it was clarity. You need to have the clarity of what the business is that you're trying to do and where you see the business going, because once you have the clarity, you can design the plan. So it definitely is clarity.
No, that's good. Yeah, I always emphasize to people that I think that vision's got to be crystal clear.
Yes.
It's the dream part of the dream plan start grow is, if you don't know what the dream is, then how do you create the roadmap to get to, anything else? How do you create the plan? How do you go somewhere? Because you're going to be going all over the place, instead of like the straight road, you're going to be taking all the detours
Exactly.
to get to the same place. And it takes you a whole lot longer when you do that.
It absolutely does.
And if anyone had any questions for you or wanted to reach out on anything we've talked about today, what's the best way to reach out to you?
I am Debbie D. Wahba across all platforms. They can find me there and just message me, in the back channels of all of them, DM me, and I would be happy to answer. And I do answer all my messages. So.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Debbie.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been so much fun.
Yeah. I think you may have been the newest business I've interviewed, because I've interviewed a couple people that were like maybe a year or a little less in business. So you may be the newest one. So
yay! I get the newest title.
Yeah. But it's always good because I think, I'm a firm believer that everyone can learn from different interviews. So whether it's someone starting a business that's hearing what you're saying versus, sometimes people can just get tips on, that have been in business, like that clarity piece. It's like, oh, maybe my vision's gotten a little muddied. Let me like rethink and, re-clarify what it is I'm doing, even if you're in year 5, 10, because I think that's something we all need to do throughout. If we're in business for 10 years, I've been in business for 10 years, going on 11 years. So, it's like, where do I see the business going now? So the business is here because, this business started very differently 10 and a half years ago. I started as a consulting company. So
and that's the thing too. You have to be able to make those changes, and it comes through the clarity. So, sometimes when we get in the muddy waters, we have to take a step back and find that clarity again, because clarity is everything.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Or if you're tuning in on the replay, please drop a comment. Let us know like how you liked it. Anyone that you want to see interviewed or any topics, because sometimes I do just topics on my own, please reach out to me and let me know. And if you have any questions for me, you can go to my site, theallisonturner.com, and send me a message, or reach out to me on social media as well. Thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.